uh, keep in mind that now we come to the private access specifiers. Okay, now this private access specifier means generally means data hiding. So in under data encapsulation we learn about data hiding. So when we talk about data hiding, this is your private access specifiers. Okay, restrictions imposed on the members of the object. So on the note part it's written here, a private member function can only be called by another member function of its class. Even an object of the class cannot invoke a private member function using the dot operator. Now, normally, how do we using the object? How do we access the data members using the dot operator, right? emb code equals to 100 like that. But using even using the dot operator, the object once it is made private, once the data members are made private, you cannot access it. And even if the member functions are made private, you cannot access it. Okay, so that is private access specifier. So coming class private members are available only to the members of their class. Private members are not accessible to functions outside the class. This is important. Private members are not accessible to functions outside the class. In the case of public, non-member functions were able to access the data members. In the case of private, any function that does not belong to the class cannot access the private data members. So how how can you later on in the following programs you will see that even non-member functions can access the data members not directly but indirectly through public member functions. Anything to access the data members can be done only through public member functions. Keep that in mind. So that is, the private access specifier prevents the direct access to members. Members, when you say about members, you are talking about both data members and member functions. Therefore, the data at the beginning of the class cannot be accessed outside the class. It is hidden from any outside access. This property is called data hiding, which is very important. This is one of the most important features in object-oriented programming. Data hiding enables you to completely encapsulate an object data member. Data hiding prevents an object user from directly accessing the data members of the class. So, data hiding prevents an object user from directly accessing the data members of the class. So, this is in terms of data security. So, if a class defines an object, so a class can declare as many objects uh, as it wants. So suppose like emb1, emb2, emb3 like that, right? So what happens is that data hiding prevents an object user from directly accessing the data members of the class. So what happens is that uh, emb2 cannot access the data of emb1, emb3 cannot access the data of emb2 like that. Okay, so in order to prevent uh, so it hides the data, okay, from the other users or from the other objects like that. So even its own object cannot access directly. So users of the class are insulated from the actual representation of the data. So that means user gets to see only what user needs to see. In that sense, class programmers can change how data is represented, or even when data comes from or even where data comes from, without affecting applications that uses the class. Okay, so visibility enables you to specify which class members, either data or function, can be accessed by users of the class. So you must define a set of member functions used to access, modify, and process the data members. So these accessible member functions are known as class public interface. Now, to create a class using data hiding, you must first understand how to make class members either hidden or visible outside the class. So that is by making use of the public private protected access specifiers. Okay, how can you make the data members uh, visible or hidden like that, or the member functions visible or hidden? So it is as if you have built an employee class, an example, around the variable to protect them from accidental corruption by outside programming influences. It seems a little dumb to define a variable in the main program that cannot use, but it is exactly what you did. So here is just a rough explanation about an error that is that you get. Okay, so if you see this, the main difference here is the syntax, the format is same, class employee, the data members are same. Only thing is that the access specifier here, it is written private. Now keep in mind that if this access specifier is not mentioned in a class definition, that means by default these data members and the member functions are private. Okay, so since here it is written, uh, that means this is private, these data members are private. So here it's written here, the data members of the employee class are declared as private, but you can see here that another access specifier is used, and this access specifier is for the member function. So this is the member function, and this is the function prototype declaration. So this is made public, so that means this member function can access this data member. Okay, so private members can be accessed only by a member function of that class. So whether, irrespective of whether this access specifier is private or public, the only way to access a private data member is by using the member function. Okay, now they cannot be accessed by any non-member functions. The data is hidden from the outside world. So no objects, no classes, subclasses, or non-member functions from outside of the class represented can access private data members. So data hiding. Okay. Now in this here in this particular program, you can see that uh, this is a member function. This is a member function definition. So this member function belongs to the class employee. So a simple cout statement where to be displayed, and then this another member function body. Okay, but this is a non-member function, so this is a non-member function. So using the class, you are creating another object emb1 as same as is in the previous program. So when you try to run this, irrespective of whether it is declared in the main function or not, okay, the following errors will be displayed. The employee class data members are declared as private. So the employee class data members are declared as private. So since these data members or these data members is private, and this member function is but this member function is public, so that's why here. So thus this members cannot be accessed in the function in this part by the non-member function, and even if it is in the main function. Okay, so when you try to compile this program, this will produce the following error. In the case of the first one also, it will show that uh, employee okay, emb codes is not accessible. In the case of the second one also, it will display the error, emb code is not accessible. Why? Because uh, whether it is an the object of this class, okay, or another object of a non declared by a non-member function. Okay, whether another object tries to access this class data members or its own object tries to access this class data members, since these data members are private, so this is error will be produced, is not accessible. Okay, in the case of this one here, this is the member function, but as you can see that in this part of this program, uh, the in this part of the program, you are not able to initialize this variable by the object, that means store the value in this variable. So that's why this error is it comes out, is not accessible. All right. Now, so thus we can conclude that the object cannot access the member directly that are declared as private. Now, for more better understanding, another program is here, that is for the private. So if you can see here, uh, we have the header files, iostream studio.h, conaio, okay, standard input output, console input output. So class employee. As you can see that all of these programs are same. The rest of the programs, you will also see that it is class employee like that. Most of the programs will be similar. So which makes it much more easier for you to understand. Okay, catch up one program to the other. So here also the context, the syntax is same, the format is same. Here also it is made private. So employee code, employee name, employee designation, employee salary, all private. I hope most all of you, the students, all of you know what is variables, what is array, right? How to use an array, what is character int. Okay, so public. Now here two member functions are declared as public. So here that is void input data, void input underscore data, and void display. So here the first one is ender. As you can see by the function name, also appropriate function names is given. If it is mentioned here input data, so appropriate function name, that means enter the data. So here in this particular program, you can see that user gets to enter from the keyboard. In the previous program, the data was initialized by the object in the program itself. So user did not enter type from the keyboard. Directly the cout statement was produced, right? But in this particular program, you see that two member functions are required. One member function to enter the data, that means to accept data from the user side, and then another member function that whatever data has been entered to display. Okay, so both are made public. Now in the main function, if you see that, yeah, clear screen. Okay, so using the class employee, object has been declared. Then right after that, you can see that it is not written here emb dot emb code equals to 100. Why? You cannot do it like, if you write down like that, emb code equals to 100, that will result in error. That means emb code is not accessible. That this error. Okay, so in this case, then how do we assign the value, or how do we how is it possible to execute this function body? So this is the function definition, this function body. So since this display function, member function, belongs to the class employee, so that is why we use the scope resolution operator to associate, to tell the compiler this member function belongs to the class employee. So how will we execute this cout statement, or how will we execute this cin statement? Okay, that is by using by calling the member function. So the object on its own, it cannot directly access the data members, that is the data members in employee code. But since the member function has been made public, the object can access through the member function. That means the member functions can directly access the data members. So we using the object, you call the member function. So this is the calling function. This calling function will call this function. This is the function definition. Okay, now you can see that this is outside of the class declaration. This is outside of the class declaration. this is the class this is the class definition, and in the class definition the function prototype, the functions are normally declared. So what is the use of the function? To execute this function body. So we have two function body, one is for display, one is for insert, and it is outside of the class. So okay, so that's why we have the calling function in the main function here. So this calling function will, so take compiler will temporarily come out of the main function and go in search, and it finds here. So this function body gets executed. Now in here, get private data members of employee class. So now we are able to get the private data members of the class employee. In there you can see that flush within the brackets std in, that is standard in. Okay, so clears input buffer for the next input or for the next output. Okay, so what it does is the input buffer. Now a buffer is a temporary storage area. So as you can see that in this here, if you see this part, this is simple cout statement, enter employee code. So user through the C input stream, user will enter the value and store it in this variable. Now so using the insertion and extraction operator, using the extraction operator, whatever is entered from the keyboard gets stored in this employee code. But as you can see that the object cannot directly access this employee code. So what it does, so uh, so what it does is that flush, it clears the buffer, and then it clears the buffer for the next input value to be entered, and then it creates a temporary storage area in the hard disk, so that this value will be stored in this variable. Okay, so that way, even when the object cannot access the private data members yet, you are able to store the value in this employee code, employee name, employee designation, employee salary. Now another thing that you'll observe here is gets function. Okay, so this flush and this gets, because of this flush and gets function that we use, we have this studio.h header file, stdio header file. Okay, now another thing that you'll observe is this gets function within the bracket that you can see that the employee name. What this gets does, now gets function, it reads characters from the standard input here, std in. So and then it stores it as a C string, okay, until a new line, until the next line character or the end of the statement is reached. In the case of this gets, why we use this here is because employee name is suppose like Miss Sujata. As you can see that Miss Sujata is a string of characters, right? So if it is a single character, then a null character will not be attached at the end of the at the end. But in the case of a string, a null character will be attached, so that means it occupies one more byte of memory. So in the case of that, gets function is used when we have a space in between the characters. Suppose like if there's a miss, and then after that we have a space, in that case we use the gets function. Now if you see the next one, in case suppose like oh here, if you see in this here, cout enter state, in state has only one word. So suppose like state Delhi, so in that case we can use directly the C input stream. But in case suppose like in case of city also we can enter, but in the case of address we cannot use scene, because multiple characters separated by blank spaces. So in such case it will result in error. Okay, I hope you have understood why we use the gets function now and why we use flush standard in. So That way all the values gets entered. After that the control comes back here, the for loop gets executed. After that the next line statement is your emp.display, the calling function to display the value that was entered by the input data member function. So it comes here, and since this is a member function, so using the scope resolution operator we can identify it, and then it displays using the C output stream. You are able to display the data: employee code, employee name, employee designation, employee salary. So that is the difference between using a public access specifier and private access specifier. Private access specifier a bit more complex, however in terms of uh, means like more program flexibility, private access specifier or in data hiding, private access specifier is better. Okay, now so next we have is the protected access specifier. I will explain that in tomorrow. So tomorrow you will see that here also, and another program is there. So we have quite a lot of program. I'll try as much to explain all of the programs. If you have any doubts in what I've explained today, you can message me or you can call me if you have any of my contact numbers. So students, please be sincere in this chapter. Try to understand, try to compare the difference between the the programs, each program, because here the programs are mostly similar. So what difference is there? And whatever you don't understand, you can ask me, or you can check tutorials. You can Google search for the material, and that way since you have that advantage, you have internet connectivity, you have your own laptop, so as much as possible keep on studying. Okay, everyday practice. The more you practice on this programming, the more it will be easier for you, and then it will become very easy for you. So you without so that without referring, you can easily write down the program. Okay, later on I'll be handing out to you an assignment, so you have to write down your own program, not the program. You have to modify these programs, so everyone will have to submit that assignment. So by that I will know whether you have understood or not. All right.